a waste with many other urban melodies and social and environmental problems. So all these groups are actually trying to tackle these problems. So out of the 8 different civic groups I visited, I will talk about 5 of them. The first, this is actually free. So on my first day of excursion, I visited 3 leading consumer co-ops in Korea, and they are respectively Chow Koot Yin and Hansalim. So looking at the year they were founded, you can see Hansalim is actually the pioneer in this consumer-driven cooperative movement, and they all have online platforms and stores where you can get organic, healthy products from all over Korea. And some co-ops, such as Chow, who have comparatively a little bit more goods from foreign countries. And then you can see that Chow and Dure are formed only after 97, and you might want to notice that that is the year when Asian countries like Korea and Thailand experienced a major economic downturn, so a financial crisis that led to the breakdown of more than 60% of co-ops in Korea, and that incident actually gave insights to these consumer co-ops, and of course so many other co-ops, in how in the future they could continue their business. They all have different areas of focus. They have different features, and the common words would be building communities and connections. So I, in this context, stands for ideal, innocence, ideal and innocence. And Due, so this might be quite inspiring for some of us who don't speak Korean. So it is the Korean word Due actually refers to the traditional form of communal sharing of farm work in small rice cultivation communities. So this is almost an imagined extension of traditional community life in rural Korea. And that is why when I talk to the representatives of Due, they also put a lot of emphasis on building building like communities in the urban setting. And for Han Salim, so Han refers to all living beings, and Salim means to restore or to protect, and they put a lot of emphasis on saving living things. And they actually derive some of their beliefs from Cheongdokyo, which is actually a derived form of Donghak. That is a Korean belief that combines the values and ideas of Catholicism and Confucianism and Buddhism. Yeah. So it's quite an indigenous Korean invention. So speaking of the Cheongdokyo, this is a shopping bag that the guy from Han Salim sold me. So this is a Cheongdokyo belief that you can see the world like this is an empty bowl, and then as you see more of the inside of the bowl, and then you can see a bowl full of rice and sunshine, and there's rainbow and cows and mountain there. So it is more like seeing the world in a bowl of rice, so like seeing the world in a grain of sand. Yeah. I recommend this book because it answers a lot of my curiosities, like why there are so many parks and lees and kims in Korea, and this book puts an emphasis on the rituals and the way how like 100 or 200 years ago in Korean farming communities, how they did celebration and traditions. I put this picture here because when I arrived at the conference room at Hansalim, so they actually put up a paper on which that says "Welcome Koot Yin." So I'm quite surprised when I saw that. And this is a conference they held with producers and consumers, in which they talk about the plastics issue that is beginning more of a concern to them. And you can see that the consumers co-op movement in Korea, it has its political and socio-economic roots. So many of these, especially the more experienced staff in these co-ops, they always mention that they always call themselves as activists and not only as staff members working in these companies. And they all have common experience and memories of the Gwangju uprising and the Minjong movement in the 1980s. And added to that, of course, is the rapid urbanization that's happening in Korea, and there emerges a growing middle class where they are more concerned about ethical consumption, and of course added to that would be the growth of social media that makes the spread of this information so easy. These are some of the leaflets produced by AYARF. The one on the right is about anti-GMO, and the left, I think this is worth some mention because so starting from last year, China banned waste imports from foreign countries. So and Korea is one of the top countries in the world where plastics is lavishly produced and consumed. And since China banned imports from Korea and many other countries, so these co-ops suddenly, I mean consumers mostly, finally got to be aware of this problem, and they're talking about how to reduce plastics use in this leaflet. And the way people told me this leaflet was would be the marché et, that is the name. So this is a farmers market that is held in different locations of Seoul every other Sunday, and so the coming one will be this Sunday on 18th. So a little bit different from what the co-ops are doing. So this is a regular space, public space where not only consumers and producers can gather, and they also have invited a lot of really professional chefs to do cooking at the spot, and most of the vendors who sell products there are they are either young farmers, small farm, owners of small farms, and urban farmers, like back to the land farmers who used to live in urban areas. So they also put a lot of emphasis on growing heirloom varieties and the eating of grains and beans. That is part of the culinary culture of Korea. Lots of seasonal crops, and this is. I'm actually quite impressed when the organizer told us that the marché at it is not an event, but it is a market. This is not an event. Like, it is not a one-off event, but it is about building a trust-based community. So the third would be I also went to Songmi-san. So in previous slides, I talked about building urban communities in the city, but unfortunately, I only went to the Songmi-san alternative school. I didn't go to the. I didn't visit the other co-ops they have in the Songmi-san Maotobu area. So, but this is the alternative primary school. But other than the school co-ops, they also have co-ops about. They have a cafe, a restaurant, child care facilities, and then elderly care facilities, and they're all run in the form of co-ops.
Koot Yin, do you know that you have only 20 minutes, including the comments? So you know that, and you only have 10 minutes left. So please check the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at this.
Yeah, should we turn it round maybe? Is that okay? Did that 10 minutes include comments or no? Include comments. Okay.
So if you would like to get more comments, you should shrink the slides.
So if not, I can just.
No, as you plan. If you
Okay.
plan to have the whole presentation for 30 minutes, it's totally
Okay,
okay.
understood. So they have a garden in the school, and the library. The kids actually didn't have to go to school in this time of the year, but the teachers were coming back for their duties, and because most of these children and their parents live so closely, they all live in the neighborhood. So this is a very good place for them to gather. And fourth, this was yesterday. So I went to Transition Town Unpyeong, and I was thinking, what would that be? Because if you later play Transition Town, then, but we are already in the Unpyeong area, right? So actually, I was taken to it's a small shop at the corner of a neighborhood, and then I met Soran, and then so I finally got to know she's by far the only permaculture instructor in Korea. So a lot of the activists and the people I met during these 3 days, they are all her students. Yeah, and the name is strange because, but you can get to know what they're doing from this very long name, like Transitional Village, but focused on community kitchen and eco-friendly dining. So they are offering sustainable meals, lunch and dinner for the neighborhood. For the neighborhood. And there's actually a high school just beside this place. So the high school students always come to the place for different workshops. And the third emphasis would be rice, grass, and forest. And actually, Sowan named herself Wheat witch because she's very good at making use of different meats in the dining services. So it's just this small, yeah, but it's of an L-shaped. But yeah, when I raised that question about, so why do you name yourself Transition Talent? And she said that actually she didn't think the term Transition Talent has a lot of difference with some of the other terms like urban community. So in essence, they are more or less the same thing. But because they do not only have this place, they have a lot of different locations across the city where they do a lot of experiments, and that's why they're linked in the form of a network. So fifth, so coming back to the right to the city, I visited an activist group, and they are mostly comprised of urban designers, graphic designers, and some of the people there, they make documentaries, so they're loosely tied together in the form of a collective. So what is this about? I think this is one of the most neglected human rights, that because the right to the city at this moment is more in kind in the hands of those who have more political and economic power. And I think that it should be a common rather than an individual privatized thing. And by claiming the right to the city, we have a right to change ourselves by changing the city and changing our ways of life. And it is the exercise of collective power, and by this exercise we are trying to reshape the processes and the orientations of urbanization. I think I'm still going to play this video. Yeah. So while I listened to the city, I went to one of the neighborhoods where they're doing community organizing. This is Ujilo.
This is Ujilo. Nestled amid skyscrapers in Seoul's city center, it's an area where people manufacture pretty much anything. And it's one of the latest areas in Seoul to face large-scale demolition and redevelopment. This is artisan Lee Jong-sung. He's worked in Ujilo for 58 years. He's also known as lifelong technician of the renowned video artist Baek Nam-jun.
내가 어릴 때 여기 온 것이 어릴 때는 그냥 20대 문제인데 여기는 청계천변에 그냥 뭐 먼지가 뿔뿔 나기도 진짜 지저분하다는 서울시의 최고로 지저분했는데 그 지저분한 청계천 가에 여기 전자부처로 타는 스킬도 있었고 천막천 비슷하지만은 계속 내가 배우는 것이 또 없고 있을 때 다 있었고.
Yeah, so that is Ujilo, and they always it is actually a bulldozing project, but always proclaimed in the name of renovation, or but that is really just a case of gentrification. So a lot of these hardware shops and small workshops. They make they can work really flexibly, and so there's a joke I heard about from that neighborhood. So they're saying if you walk along the streets of Ujiro and visit each and every of these small workshops, you can actually gather enough materials to make a tank. So that is the kind of place you can imagine. So I joined the protest with Jiho. That is an area that is already being demolished. This is Wu Xiong, the director and organizer of Listen to the City. It says save the industrial ecosystem, and I talk about this point on my poster. Yeah, so I think so to claim the right to the city is to take the right from the political and social elites, and we are looking for a city that is made for people. Yeah, that's it. This is a photo, like an event that we had in my farm yesterday. So too bad that I missed it. Yeah, thank you.